The school-to-prison pipeline is an over-reliance on punitive school discipline policies, pushing children out of education and into the criminal justice system. Hello, I'm Kimberly Halkett. For the first time, a U.S. congressional panel is looking into what the American Civil Liberties Union calls a disturbing trend, and one which criminalizes rather than educates many U.S. children. The so-called school-to-prison pipeline has been linked to zero-tolerance policies that remove teachers' discretion on how to discipline student misbehavior. School-based arrests, disciplinary alternative schools, and secured detention are also being blamed. Campaigners say the policy has seen children suspended for minor infractions, marginalizing at-risk youth and denying them access to education. They say it all leaves them more likely to end up in prison as adults. What's more, the burden of the trend falls disproportionately on students of color. Well, Edward Ward is a youth worker from Chicago who was testifying about the school-to-prison pipeline in Congress. I caught up with him before he went in. So talk to me about the school-to-prison pipeline. How have you seen this sort of manifest itself? You've really seen it at the front lines, haven't you?
Yes. I've actually seen where in schools they treat the students like prisoners. And when you treat students like prisoners or criminals, you don't get results, you get consequences. And so as a result of the students constantly being treated like criminals, their voices are not being heard. They're being suspended for minor infractions such as not wearing the proper identification around their necks. When they come to school late, they're being placed in these detention centers where it seems like it's solitary confinement, where if you talk wrong or if you say anything, then you get suspended. If your phone rings and it's heard, you get suspended. If you put in headphones, you get suspended. And they send you to these detention centers or the detention room, and they don't give you any work to do. You miss out on your class time. And we were on block schedules, so they missed about 90 minutes worth of class time.
Now, why would something like this be happening in a school setting? This doesn't sound like education.
I guess the crazy thing about it is one of their main reasons or motives were that we're going to teach students respect. And it was more so they weren't teaching respect, but they were, oppressing the students into respecting the adults. Whereas if a student wants to speak his or her mind, if they want to express themselves, they were basically saying school was not the place to do that. But they've completely ignored every issue or problem that the students faced outside of school.
Now, you're from Chicago. Is this something that's just happening in Chicago, or is this something that's happening all across the United States? Which students are being impacted?
I think it's happening more so across the country, because I work with Dignity in Schools. It's a national coalition, and so we work with students all across the country who are facing some of the similar issues.
And is it students of color who are being impacted? Is it white students? Who are the students that are facing these, I think they're sometimes called zero-tolerance policies?
Yes, I would say I believe that it's students everywhere, but more so it's more consistent among students of color. But research shows that students of color are being suspended more frequently than white students for minor infractions.
Is there more pressure on these students, or rather the schools, to perform, and maybe that's the reason for some of these zero-tolerance policies? For example, the No Child Left Behind Act has certainly put a lot of pressure on teachers and administrators to make sure that students succeed. Is that a contributing factor here?
I think it is, but I think that as far as due to the pressure that they're going about it the wrong way. Because if you want students to succeed, you have to give them the chance to succeed. Wherefore, if you suspend them or expel them, then you're basically dismantling their future.
So what needs to be done? Why is this sort of being allowed to continue?
I think it's been allowed to continue because there's not enough pressure on the public school system. And what needs to be done is we need to offer more positive approaches to discipline. We need to offer more positive approaches to deal with the situations that they face outside of school within their own communities.
But if this is an issue of discipline, don't the high-performing students deserve to be learning in a setting free from distractions of children that may be causing trouble?
But see, a lot of people would argue that. I was a high-performing student, and it bothers me more to see that students are actually ignored, to see that students are being put to the streets, treated like criminals. That's why I got involved, to change something, to change the system.
So bottom line, you're on Capitol Hill. What are you going to tell lawmakers? What message do you want them to hear?
I want them to hear that you don't shut up the voices of the students. You have to speak with the students, understand their current situations. Stop putting them out of school. Don't suspend them. Don't detain them for minor infractions. You want to kind of build a better relationship with the community. You want to implement like restorative justice practices or other best practices in the schools that would help to rebuild a sense of community. Because if you have a good community, then you have a good school.
Hi, today we're here with Sean Thompson. He's a fellow Roosevelt student, and he's going to tell us about his prison life.
How you doing? My name is Sean Thompson. I'm 48 years old. I spent approximately 28 years in veteran state prison, 13 years, 7 months in state prison, 13 years, 2 months in federal prison. I was located in the United States prison in Leavenworth, Kansas.
What do you think needs to be done to resolve the unequal amount of minorities within the prison systems?
The problem is not really the laws. The problems are the prosecution of the laws and the racial discriminations that's involved in the system. Either driving while black, racial profiling, or just simple discrimination is what's wrong with the system. Because there's nothing wrong with the letter of the law. It's the application and the prosecution of the law that's the problem.
Can you describe the racial disparities you've seen within the prison system?
Yeah, when I was incarcerated in the United States prison in Leavenworth, probably like 1999, it's a prison with approximately 2,200 inmates, and the racial disparity is great. There's much more black and brown people incarcerated there. One day I sat on the yard, and I literally counted only 14 young white males in the prison, and there was literally hundreds and hundreds of black and brown inmates in Leavenworth. That's it.
Do you think the system is set up for minorities to fail?
Not per se. I would say that the system is racist at its core. This discriminatory practices on the people of color is just make it difficult. I think we set ourselves up for failure when we know that the system is racist and we fall into the traps. That's it.
How has prison affected you upon your release?
It's affected me really, really many different ways. First, I had to reintegrate myself and learn to re-socialize with people and learn to be friendly instead of have a frown on my face and be really outstandish. The system didn't help me at all. When I was released, I didn't get any assistance with housing or programming or anything, employment. Thank God for Roosevelt University. I'm a senior here at Roosevelt University. This is my second year. I graduate May the 3rd with a bachelor's in professional studies with a 3.8 grade point average. I'm the vice president of the Criminal Justice Society, and life is good. It was difficult at first because, you know, when you don't have any help or any assistance, but you got to believe in yourself and you got to dig down deep. And if it doesn't kill you, it simply makes you stronger.
Did minority inmates get treated different than white inmates?
Yeah, of course. At Leavenworth, the majority of the staff was white. And the prison is located in a rural community, and it's like the staff is like 90% white, and it's just natural that they cater to the white inmates differently, especially the young whites, because it's really, really dangerous place, and the young white guys is dangerous for them, and the white guards kind of look out for them so they can help them survive, help them make it through it.
Is there social segregation within the prison walls?
Yeah, of course, everything's segregated. In the kitchen, the blacks sit in a certain spot, the whites sit in a certain spot, the Mexicans sit in a certain spot. The gangs even have their section. The GDs sit here, the Crips here, the Bloods here, the Aryan Nation, all the different factions. And the reality of the situation, if you're not part of that crew, don't go to their section.
Can you describe the conditions of the prison where you were incarcerated?
United States Prison Leavenworth is maybe a 150, 200-year-old prison. It's located in Leavenworth, Kansas, surrounded by a 100-foot wall and approximately 2,200 inmates. The physical conditions of the prison is in disrepair. The food is horrible. It's really just like a really violent and dangerous place. A lot of people with a lot of time, and the conditions are just overcrowded and overwhelming.
African Americans now constitute nearly 1 million of the total 2.3 million incarcerated population. African Americans are incarcerated at nearly 6 times the rate of whites. Together, African Americans and Hispanics comprise 58% of all prisoners in 2008. African Americans and Hispanics make up approximately 1/4 of the U.S. population.